In this video, we're going to take a quick look at another way that we can set and remove variables across different scopes using JSTL standard tags. So for this one, we want the JSTL SetRemove Variables.mp4 file. In this file, we've completed the get country data action as well as the get city data so that we have a couple things that we can work with. So that will bring in our country data, and we still have all the other information that we have, and we're going to also list countries. So when we look at listing the countries, what we'll see is that we're going to continue to follow the same pattern we had before with the cities. We'll check and make sure that people are logged in, and then we'll check and make sure they're authorized to the correct level, and then we'll make sure that we actually have the data in scope. Once it is, then we'll print out welcome back to the user, and then we'll actually interact with the data. So just to make this easier, I'm only using part of the properties available to the country. You could add more if you wanted to. And you can see that we're just once again generating a table using a for each loop, just like we did last time with cities, and pulling in the country data, interacting with each one using the expression language. But what we'll note is that our data is out of date. Now granted, in the real world, what we would do is update our data in the database, and that would then correct our error. But here what we have is just a quick demonstration that allows us to go ahead and interact with this data and work with these variables directly. So what I'm going to do is show you how to use set and get to pull information into a variable, modify that information, and then interact with it. So here we're going to once again loop on the country items, and we'll just put them into a variable called temp country. So then we'll check if the temp country head of state is equal to George W. Bush, which is our previous president, then that's the out-of-date data, and we need to update it. What we'll do is print out a message that simply says the temp country.code, which will be USA or US Virgin Islands or whatever that is, has a head of state currently set to, and it'll print out George W. Bush. Then we'll say set a variable named update country. That entire variable will be pulled in for the country object. So the entire country, all of its data will be into update country. We'll then print out the update country using its default toString just so that we can see what it looked like before, including the George W. Bush. We'll then set our target to be the update country. The property we're going to modify is going to be the head of state. So this will be the set head of state. And we're going to modify it with the value Barack Obama, our current president at the time of this recording. So what we'll do here then is update and state to the user, please update the country code that's in violation to have the head of state set to the new country head of state, which will be Barack Obama. And that will show us how to pull that value just like we would pull any value. And then we'll print out the whole thing to show what it should look like when it's all done. Then we're going to remove the entire temp country variable from our current set variable to update country. So this entire variable will just be removed from the current scope, which in this case is just a page scope. And variable cleared will then show that nothing will print out, and that will be blank, showing that that has been removed. So just in recap here, what you can see is that we have the ability to set a variable based on a specific object that we're working with, and it can be across any scope. Here we're just working with the session scope that we're pulling the data from, and we're actually working with it locally. We're not actually modifying the session scope data, so that's important to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and just run this list countries really quickly and see this in action. We'll have to log in. So once again, we'll say infinite skills, and our password is still irrelevant at this point. Let's go ahead and remember us, sign in. There we can see all of our country information has been pulled in as expected. And as we scroll down to the bottom, what we'll see is that there are some George W. Bushes in place. You can see a couple as we scroll over. Here's one that are still in place in our data, which is what we expected. That's the out-of-date data. So we need to let people know to modify that. So we say country ASM has a head of state equal George Bush. Before changes, here it is. You can see George Bush is in there. Update ASM to have head of state Barack Obama. And then this is what it should look like when it's done. Here's Barack Obama in there. And once again, the variable has been cleared, so it's no longer there. And it does that for all of the different items where George Bush is listed as a head of state that should be Barack Obama. And so that would just be a quick way we could print out or show some things that need to be updated to our database administrator if we wanted to. Obviously, we would hide that page from our regular users. The other thing I wanted to show you is just because of the fact that we did some setting and removing here, I wanted to show you that it is available across all the different scopes. So I built a new sign out page very quickly that allows us to just see we can pull in information once again from session, and we can actually remove directly from the session on that variable. So here we'll just say our authorized user is currently this person, and then we'll remove that variable right out of the entire session. So before we were just removing it out of the page. Now here we're going to remove out of the session by naming the scope, and after we'll try to print that out, and once again it's there. So then there's a little note here that you can read through, which essentially tells us we can adjust the variables in any scope. And we want to make sure that in order to modify and work with our data in an MVC fashion, this probably isn't the best way because, of course, we want the controller to handle object interaction, not the actual view. It's just a way to look at it, though, and render it and watch it in play. So we're signed in right now as Infinite Skills. So we can actually click on the sign out page down here. It's the second one. And this one will tell us before the authorized user was Infinite Skills and after the authorized user is now empty. So we were able to remove that right out of the session using the remove variable. Since we set cookies, we could log right back in and continue to do that over and over again if we wanted to see it.